Welcome to Show Pop. I'm Dee, and I break down the dynamics behind the shows we love to watch. Today, we're talking episode 3 of Family Empire Houston. This episode was about legacy, loyalty, and what happens when family, money, and unresolved feelings all get tied together. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Here we go. Okay, so let's get into this episode recap and analysis. This was such a good episode. It was rich. We got to see so many different things in this episode. So I can't wait to get into it. All right, so let's talk about it. This episode exposed something interesting in the Braden family dynamic. Everyone in this episode is trying to protect something. Granny is protecting legacy. Nikki is protecting the family image. Chris is protecting his pride. Karamell is protecting her reputation. And Nicole is protecting peace, both hers and Granny's. So let's break it all down, right? All right. So in the first scene, this is where Jermisha and their developer family friends, which is a couple, Nikki and Nikki, they all are on the lot. Okay. So I'm sure you guys remember that first scene. And the developers are quoting Meisha, letting her know the only way to build legacy is to develop and hold on to the land rather than to develop and sell it right away. Okay. Now, what I want to get into about this scene was the back and forth between Meisha and Nikki. Meisha makes a comment that Granny only cares about the G1s. And this comment snowballs into a slight conflict between her and her Aunt Nikki. So Nikki immediately refutes the comment, saying that it's not true, and Granny just wants to make sure that the G1s don't get left out of the circle. That's when Meisha says to Nikki that, well, rather, she asks her, and she says, well, she asks, how many times has she sold Granny Oscarine? How many times has Granny Oscarine sold off her land and legacy to pay off the G1's bill? Did you guys see Nikki's reaction? I could tell she was trying to keep it cute for the cameras, but she was not happy that Meisha said that. And that's when she said that, it's false, it's not true. And then Meisha goes and asks her Aunt Nikki, if mortgages and car notes are considered bills. And that's when Nikki says, Miss Oscarine does not sell things to help any of her children cover their bills. She's adamant about that. And then she goes on to admit that Miss Oscarine did sell one thing and the G1s were compensated, or rather she said blessed. That's the word she used. They were blessed. And then she asked Meisha if her mother blessed her. In other words, when your mom was blessed by your grandma, did she help you out too? And that's when Misha's like, oh, yeah, my mom is she's a sharing type of person. So that was so interesting to me because I think that there's some truth in what Meisha says. And I think Nikki is trying to do reputation control. And she doesn't want the fact that their mother, Miss Oscarine, helps her grown children out there for the world to know. And I think it's worth talking about because if you are, okay, how do I say this? It's a cultural thing when it comes to Black people. Now I realize every family is not the same, but in many Black families, Black mothers will often sacrifice heavily for their children. Their family is their everything. Okay. And they will go without in order to make sure that their children are okay. And they will do it until the day that they die. And I know that there are a lot of mothers like that in a lot of cultures, but because I'm Black, I'm speaking about the Black experience. And in the Black culture, a lot of moms will go to the ends of their earth to make sure that their children are good, and they will give everything they have. And even if they have nothing, as long as their kids are good, they're good, right? And even up until they're adults, they will still do things like that. So I think that while Nikki was trying to like maybe hide that, because of course she's saying it's not real and we don't know, right? We're not in the family. I believe that there's some truth to it, but that's just my thoughts and opinions. But that being said, because Nikki, even though Nikki is trying to cover that up, it's nothing to be ashamed of because people go through hard times. And I don't think it's anything to that's really worth covering up, because that happens to a lot of families across a lot of cultures, races, backgrounds, ethnicities. A lot of parents, moms and dads will, help their kids, even their adult children, if they have it like that. So I don't think there's anything that they needed to hide, but I see that Nikki maybe felt ashamed, or maybe she just didn't want the world to know her business. But I do have some questions because it just makes you wonder. And I wonder, like, do the G1s, are they living above their means? Are they making irresponsible financial decisions because they know that their parents and, well, now just their mother is wealthy and they kind of have a safety net? Or did they just fall on hard times? It happens to the best of us, right? So it just got me wondering. But because Nikki seems adamant on preserving the image that the entire Braden family is doing financially well, it feels like Meisha appears more honest about the ups and downs that the different generations could be going through and how that has affected the Braden legacy. So it just comes off as though Meisha is more truthful about, the family dynamics. And you know Nikki reminds me a lot of, like, I don't have any aunts, but I have like second generation cousin, I guess, like my dad's and mom's like cousins that are like aunts, if that makes sense, right? They're like first cousins, so I guess they would be my second cousins. They remind me a lot of like them, and that generation group sometimes can try to make things look a certain way or look better than they actually are. So it just makes me wonder about like Nicole's mindset, but it was very, very interesting. Okay, now let's move on to the second scene with Nicole and her mom. So this scene was really, really interesting. Nicole breaks us down, or rather, she kind of lets us in a little bit about her struggles with fertility and conceiving her daughter Layton. And then she tells her mom that she's thinking about adopting, which was really cool. And I like how her mom was, open and understanding, but mostly just concerned that Nikki is so busy, and that, letting her know pretty much letting her know that bringing in a new child, whether adopted or your own or whatever it may be, is a lot of work and it requires time, which Nikki doesn't appear to have. Okay. Now, a more interesting aspect of this scene was where Nikki, did I say Nikki? Have I been saying Nikki this whole time? Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I meant Nicole. Okay, you guys. Um, okay, so my bad. I mean, if I said Nikki earlier for this second scene, I mean Nicole. I am just terrible. Sometimes I get people's like close names and stuff mixed up. And when it's a lot of people to keep track of in a show, it can be so challenging. But moving forward, Nicole. Okay. So the aspect of this scene that I really want to talk about is when Nicole's mom asks her about her meeting with Keisha. And Nicole talks about how, she's excited to grow closer with Keisha, and she's open to doing that, but she doesn't want outside influences affecting her ability to build a relationship with her half sister. And that's when her mom begins to try to tell her version, talking to what she said was something like that everyone doesn't know what happened and that things started well before Nicole and Keisha were born. So this is giving you an idea of just how intricate and how long standing this relationship is. Well, let's say not relationship, let's say dynamic. This dynamic is with Keisha's mom and Nicole's mom. They go way back. This thing goes way back. Okay. And I'm not going to get too far into it because I want to be respectful of what they're trying to protect. And it's very clear that the mom is willing to talk about it, but it's obvious that Nicole doesn't want that on camera or doesn't want to talk about it at all, right? Because she did say to her mother, like, she respectfully does not care and that she doesn't want to talk about it. So I will gingerly step around that, but it does make you really look at Nicole's and Keisha's father and wonder, what exactly was he doing and what was he telling these women, right? That's all. I'm gonna leave it right there. But what I do wonder is, why doesn't Nicole want to hear her mother's side of the story? Is it just because she doesn't want it on camera, or she just doesn't want to hear about it at all? I wonder if she's worried that it may make it harder for her to build a relationship with Keisha if she hears her mother's side. So I wonder about that. Like I said earlier, it's pretty clear that the mom wants to share her side. I just kind of wonder, do you want to share it because you want to control the narrative? Or is it an actual emotional release? You've been holding this in for so long, you just need to tell your story. So I just wonder. I want you guys to tell me what you think, okay? Let's see. I feel like telling the story from her perspective, talking about Nicole's mom, could be healing for her and Nicole if it's done right and with the support of a professional, right? So I kind of wish I could hear. I would like to know the mom's side of the story. I just would just like to hear her side. It's neither here nor there. I'm not going to make a judgment about the other parties because there were three people involved, but I just want to know the tea. Who wouldn't want to know the tea? It sounds really interesting, but I'm also very respectful of this. You just, these type of things are very hard for people. Some people are very open and they'll tell you, and they'll talk about it, but the generations we're watching discuss this thing, they are more quieter, keep it to themselves type of generation. I could say that from experience and growing up. I had a family quite similar to the Bradens. And when you have grandparents and when you have your parents and their cousins that they grew up with, and you keep breaking it down through the generation, when you have family that span multiple generations, you do really get to know and see how a lot of them think in those generations. Not they're always the same. I'm not saying that they all think the same, but there are some similarities. And one thing I would say is that Nicole's mother's generation probably isn't the one that's going to spill their business very easily as compared to like later generations, the millennials, whoever comes after or before millennials. Even they're a little bit more open, but they're still kind of tight-lipped. I forget, who is that? Is that X? Is that, oh crap, you got to forgive me, okay? I'm not good with my generations, but that's that's that pretty much. So anyway, it's just interesting. Um, but to me, it seems like Nicole is adamant on avoiding the conversation and moving forward. And she seems like she wants to just move forward from where they are now. And I feel like that could be a negative or a positive depending on how you look at the situation. So basically, I just wonder, is Nicole, is she ready? Is she emotionally mature enough to handle something like that? Is that an emotional, is this an example of emotional maturity? Or is she being emotionally avoidant? Because Nicole seems to believe that revisiting the past may do more damage than good. And she may be right about that, right? So let's talk about the brunch with the brokers scene. What I really took away from this scene was I first liked that what it was celebrating top performers at the Braden group, celebrating an all black brokerage, talking about the need and the value that black realtors bring to the table. I really enjoyed Misha's speech. She is such an excellent speech giver. She's really good at what she does. I really enjoy watching her. I really enjoy watching her work the room. I enjoy her seeing her flourish professionally. I do with Nicole too as well, but for some reason I just really enjoy watching Meisha work, and I enjoyed her lunch that she gave the brunch with brokers. It was beautiful. It was absolutely fabulous. Now in this scene, the things I want to talk about are Chris. Let's talk about how Chris gets brought up again, right? And then we can talk about the situation with Karamell and Keisha. So Chris again gets brought up his work. Where is he? Um, so Nicole asks where he is. Meisha tells Nicole that, he had another gig booked before this event was planned. That's when Meisha says that, she's tired of talking about Chris, and Nikki says she's tired of the money. She says she's tired of the money coming out of her bank account every 2 weeks for Chris getting paid for a job that he doesn't do. Now, listen, I'm getting sick of tired of talking about Chris too, quite frankly, because what I need to understand is this, because it's very clear that Nicole feels like he doesn't do enough. It feels like, she obviously feels pretty clear that he gets paid to do nothing. And it feels like Meisha backs her up in that, right? Meisha and Nicole, please tell me, is Chris an independent contractor or an employee? I need to know. Because how is he continuing to get paid for a job that you say he doesn't do? If he's getting paid every 2 weeks, it indicates that he is an employee. And that would make me ask this question: how does an employee continue to get paid for not performing? Okay, my background is in human resource management. I have a master's degree in human resource management. So I'm totally confused about what is going on here. If Braden Group is a huge corporation, which appears to be to me that it is, how are you having someone on the payroll that isn't performing but continuing to get paid? Any other employee doing such a thing would have been placed on a performance improvement plan, a performance improvement plan, warned about losing their job or fired. So why hasn't he been on any of those things? Or maybe that little talking to was his warning that y'all gave him in, I think it was what, episode 1? I don't want to hear them complaining about this man anymore unless they're going to do something about it, because this doesn't make any sense. I don't care that he's family. It's business. And most family members do have difficulty understanding and separating business from family, but you still have to run your family business like a business, So there, it doesn't make sense. And it's also not fair to the rest of their employees in their organization because I they're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to not perform and continue to get paid. So it's not right. I don't think it's cool. Now, Nicole, says that this is the complexities of working with family. This is why it's complex. I don't think it has to be that complex. I would challenge her on that. He may be family, like I said, but he also is an employee at a business that just so happens to be a family business. He should not be paid for work he does not do because they would never allow a non family member to take advantage of the business like that. So I think it's a bunch of bull. All right. Now I want to break down Nicole and Karamell and the whole conversation that they had at the table. Okay. So Nicole expresses to Karamell that she's glad that she came to the lunch because she feels like she doesn't know her and she feels like she should since that's her sister's girlfriend, right? And so they get into a whole thing. Meisha calls Karamell an accessory. It was just it was really uncomfortable to watch. I think they handled it well because they are business women and Karamell is also a businesswoman. And so it was classy, but you could tell that it was uncomfortable for everybody, the things that were being said. And Caramel looked really like taken aback, right? So they get into the how the family met Caramel. And apparently they met her, or I guess they didn't know about her up until Keisha's mom had passed away. And they found out that, when Keisha's ex was blowing up her phone, I guess to provide support, they found out that this woman that Keisha was seeing, Caramel, was upset with her about the ex calling, and they felt like that was not the time or the place, right? Nicole touches on that a little bit with Caramel, and they kind of go back and forth, right? And then that's when we see Keisha's confessional, and she pretty much says that she didn't know her family felt that way, but she wonders why they didn't express that to her instead of piling on Caramel at the lunch. That's what she says in her confessional. What I'm confused about is she says that it felt like a setup, but she did nothing in the moment to address the tension, to address the concerns. She could have said anything in the moment. When I tell you she sunk back in that chair and she was so freaking quiet, her lips were zipped. I feel like she really. Do you remember what I said in my first recap of the show? She's kind of, I feel like she's been conditioned to know when to speak and when not to speak, when to be quiet, when to be seen and not heard. I don't know why. I don't know what she experienced in that family growing up, especially being, I won't use that term, being the child that was had outside. I'm assuming that I would dare to assume that Nicole's father was married to Nicole's mother. And possibly, now this is I am speculating at this point. This is not fact. I did not hear this in the show. I want to be clear about that, okay? But if I were to speculate, I would think that Nicole's mother was probably married to her father, and Keisha's mother was someone who the father had relations with, and Keisha was, the product was Keisha. So that makes me feel like, even when Keisha was probably brought around, it was, I mean, she even says it herself in some of the things, like they would tell her to step out of the family photos. This picture is only for our family, things like that. So it's like she's been taught to be careful about what she says in that family. And I felt it in that moment, in that scene, because she didn't stand up for herself or Caramel. She chose to do it via text. Why do that, Keisha? I mean, you are a grown woman now. You can stand up for yourself, and if your family has a problem with it, well, they're going to have to deal. but you don't have to hold it in anymore. That's what I get from that. I mean, that's what advice I would tell her. You don't have to hold that in. If you feel a way, say it with your chest. You don't have to wait until you're sitting at home ruminating over it. So I wonder if Karamell said something to her in the car and felt like she was like kind of twisted her arm to say something, or if it is what I feel that Keisha kind of ruminated a little bit, maybe in the moment didn't feel like it was necessary, kind of got in her head about it, and then was like, you know what, I'm going to tell them, and then kind of text about it or what. So that that was that for that scene. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the lunch. The Keisha and Karamell and Nicole and Jermisha kind of thing. Oof, that was heavy, but we're gonna find out more about that later, right? Okay, so let's get into Jaquita and Chris. In this scene with Jaquita and Jaquita, I should call her Quita. I'm just lazy when I say her name. I just say Jaquita, but her name is Jaquita. When she's on video calling with her husband, and he's talking about how he's not going to go back to the Braden group until they give him a contract, and Quita, tells him like, "But that doesn't mean you're quitting." That's what she says to him. But that doesn't mean you're quitting. You could tell that Queen is concerned that Chris, well, she even says it, she's concerned that Chris will act on emotion and quit, and is worried about losing that income. And she actually states that they have real bills and she needs him to go to work and get this money. That's what she says in that scene. And what I took away here was like that there's a real disconnect. It's clear that Chris feels undervalued as an employee, and he's prepared to take drastic steps to have autonomy again, right? And I can tell you, I want to sit with that for a moment because I can understand that. Um, Personally, I'll say maybe this is really not the place for me to get into my personal stuff. But if I ever do well enough to have a members only, maybe I'll talk about that. But this is a Family Empire Houston recap, not a review of Dana's life. So I will talk about that. But I know what that feels like, to feel undervalued as an employee, and being prepared to completely step away just so you can find a place or work for yourself or whatever it may be. Sometimes it's not worth it when it comes to your job to deal with certain things. Now I don't know if that's Chris's. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out when it comes to Chris, and I don't know if he's being mistreated or if he's just being dramatic, because it makes you wonder. Because on one side, it feels like you see how the women talk about him. On the other side, even the men in the last episode say that Chris is kind of wishy-washy. They try to hit him up, they can't get him. They don't hear from him, so it makes you wonder, Chris, is it you or is it the Braden group? Okay. That being said, it's very clear that Quita is concerned about finances, and she may feel Chris being with the Braden group is a more stable job than gig work, because it kind of seems like if he's not working from what I've seen in the last few episodes and what I saw in this episode, it seems like his work is kind of, how do you say, uh he has to get gigs, he has to get clients, right? And it's not steady. It's kind of when you can get someone kind of calls you and they want your services. That's what I'm gathering from that. So I can understand Quita's concern, given they have children, given they probably are mortgaging that house. I'm sure they have a home loan. um I'd be lucky if they had it paid off. That would be cool. I don't know. But most people have home loans, things like that. And kids probably want to put them through college, all that, all the stuff. And she's probably worried about the future if he decides to stop working for the Braden group. And that's understandable. So we'll see how that continues to develop as we move through the episodes. All right, now let's move into Karamell and Keisha. In this scene that they're in, they are at a home that they're looking at that could possibly be their house. Okay. Rather, she asked Keisha if she told the family what really happened and then tells her to be honest. And she asks if Keisha's family knows what she did. Okay. So it's very clear to me that whatever Keisha did, Caramel found it extremely disrespectful, unacceptable, something. It's sounding like it's much more than what Keisha's letting on. So that's something to note. I found that very interesting. I did notice that Keisha said in her confessional that she was single when she met Caramel, but she thought it was mature to be friends with her ex still. And she thought some things were okay. But Caramel set her boundaries and Keisha chose not to respect them. So, my question is, what things, Keisha? Because if Caramel had to set a boundary about it and then you disrespected it, we're dealing with multiple levels of things here. You thought some things were okay, but Caramel didn't. Caramel told you they weren't okay, and you still continue to do it. There's no way you thought that those things were okay before Caramel told you that they weren't. So what were you doing, Miss Ma'am? That would be my question. What were you doing? And who were you doing it with? Because Caramel seems pretty darn uh adamant that I keep using that word. That's the word of the day to you guys here on this video. Adamant. She seems pretty adamant that you did something that was highly disrespectful. Now, my question to Caramel will be, did it warrant you giving her a hard time, arguing, whatever it may be? Did it warrant that at the time when she was trying to grieve her mother? Hmm. That would be my question. Absolutely. Was it the time? Could you have held it in? But I do realize that there are some people that just can't hold it in. They just can't. They're just either whether they're not mature enough or some things just set people off that they don't give a damn what you're going through. They're gonna let you know that you took it too far. So I don't know. But I don't believe in disrespecting people. I don't believe in um crossing people's boundaries, but I also believe that there's a time and a place. And something like the loss of a mother, it's not the time to be selfish. It could have waited. So I don't know. I don't know. I do, but I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna say it. If what they say is true, Caramel, you were wrong. You were wrong. You could have waited. It wasn't that serious at the time. I get that she could have possibly been cheating on you, and I'm inferring here because that was not said in this scene, but I get it. Unacceptable. But her mother passed away. And if what they say is true, you should know that you were wrong. You knew that you were wrong if that's what happened, you know? Okay, so I want to talk quickly about the scene with Nicole and Granny Oscarine. I thought it was really, really sweet that Nicole, talked to her grandma and let her know that she was inspired by her story and that she's thinking about adopting because her granny was adopted. And so that was really beautiful. We learned something about Miss Oscarine, the matriarch, that she was given up at 5 months and that she says that her mother didn't really want a connection with her, which is heartbreaking, but she was blessed to find a wonderful adoptive parent, and she says she had a beautiful life. So also in this scene, Nicole tells, Granny that she doesn't want her to feel pressured by the family to do anything with the land that she doesn't want to do. And Granny replies, I won't be pressured. She said something like to the fact, I won't be pressured by nothing, or I'm not going to be pressured into nothing. I love that. She is so spicy, even at her age. I just love it. She's so full of life. And it really makes you look at things different. I love seeing the different generations in this episode. Like I told you, this was really great um, reality TV. And I love seeing Granny Oscarine. I know it must be a lot for her to film, but she gets around real good, and she's so like full of life, and she's so full of personality, and it's just really a pleasure to get to watch her family and see her interact with her children, her grandchildren, and her great grandchildren, which we saw that in this scene when she was making cabbage with her granddaughter and her great granddaughter. Was really beautiful, so it was a really sweet moment. And it just makes me wonder, like, as you age, does it get easier for you to stand up for yourself? Because it seems like Miss Oscarine really knows who she is, and she doesn't let anybody push her around, not even her family. And I really love that, because I know that a lot of young people, a lot of young women can really struggle, and we can be swayed sometimes. We can be influenced to do things we don't want to do because, family, friends, whatever it may be. But Miss Oscarine, she doesn't let that happen. So I really enjoyed that scene. All right, so let's talk about oh, the last scene. Okay. This is Justin's showcase, and we're going to talk about Aunt Nikki, child, okay? We're going to talk about Aunt Nikki. So Justin is performing at the venue, and the family is invited. Everybody's there. We got Nikki, we got Jaquita's back in town. We who else is there? Chris is there, Nicole is there, and Aunt Nikki is there. There might be somebody I'm missing or another family member. It was a lot of family there, but that's who we need to know about. So Aunt Nikki was there again. Now you may be thinking, like, why is you on Aunt Nikki's neck? But let me just tell you, I can't hold it in, okay? These are my thoughts. I feel like Nikki feels and acts younger than her siblings. And maybe she is quite a bit younger than her siblings. I don't know if she's younger than Cheryl, than what's the other ones? There's two more. I forget what Nicole's mom's name is, but there's Cheryl, and there's Charlotte, and there's Nicole's mom, and I forget her name. And then there's Nikki. I think Nikki may be the youngest one in the family, but she ain't that young. And what I mean by that is that she likes to go and do things that the grandkids do. Now, by all means, it's an event. It's you're going to support your family. But what I keep seeing is I don't see the other aunties there. They're not there. The only time we saw the other aunts is when they were helping the mom, helping Miss Oscarine at the event place that Oscarine has. She has a place that she rents for events. And when they were cooking in the Sunday dinner or whatever, the big family dinner, delicious, right? Beautiful. In episode 1. Other than that, you do not see them hanging out with their grandkids doing young folk stuff. So I don't know. I low key feel like Aunt Nikki is like, she's giving that auntie that wants to be young again. She's giving that auntie that wants to be outside. She's giving that auntie that wants to be seen. She looks good. I'm not mad about it. You know what I mean? But I'm just like, girl, it's always you. You are always with your did I say the grandkids? When I say grandkids, I mean Oscarine's grandkids, but those are her nieces and nephews. You know, Nicole, Quita, Meisha, those are her nieces. And then, of course, the nephews by marriage, right? So she just wants to be, she's always where they are. And I just be like, is it because, you're filming and you're called to film, or you just like to be outside? But anyway, I found that really, really interesting. So that's all I really have for that scene, because they're going to move into the beginning of episode 4 is going to kind of continue with this whole thing, and there's going to be a lot to talk about in that uh in episode 4, so I can't wait for that. But until then, we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up. So let's talk about the takeaways, right? First, everybody wants to control the narrative in this episode, okay? Meisha challenges narratives. Nicole avoids narratives. Nicole's mother wants to have her narrative heard. Karamell wants fairness, and Chris wants professional validation. Everybody wants to control the narrative in this episode, okay? Second, legacy is more than land. Legacy in this episode means emotional inheritance, family patterns, business culture, relationship habits, and conflict styles. So we got to experience the Braden family navigating all forms of legacy in this episode. And finally, the family has love, but weak communication. What I'm picking up on is that the Bradens struggle with direct emotional communication. They appear to be exceptional business communicators, but when it comes to emotional communication, they avoid, deflect, or rewrite the narrative. Okay? And that's really all I have. Again, I want to say this was an excellent reality television episode. We are watching a family navigate business, legacy, professional growth, and interpersonal communication challenges. The Bradens are giving us exceptional television, and I cannot wait for the next episode, really and truly, okay? So let me ask y'all this. Was Nicole wise to avoid the past? Is Chris being mistreated, or is he underperforming? Is Karamell misunderstood? And did Keisha avoid accountability in this episode? Let me know in the comments, okay? But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Enjoy the outro music, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.